Could you just give us an overview of Green New Deal,
Yeah.
Green Initiative, Build Back Better?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that like the Green New Deal is a term that sort of captures the current leading global energy agenda right now. And I think the broadest way to put it is it's the rapid elimination of fossil fuels. That's really the goal. And you want to put it a little bit more precisely, it's the rapid elimination of CO2 emissions or greenhouse gas emissions, but I'll just say CO2 emissions because that's the main greenhouse gas so involved here. So the basic view is CO2 emissions from fossil fuels are, quote, destroying the planet through catastrophic climate change. And so we need to rapidly eliminate them. So that's kind of step one. It's then interesting. I want to highlight step two, and this goes to the green in Green New Deal. Step two is we need to replace them specifically with solar and wind, right? It's overwhelmingly solar and wind, specifically with green energy. I just want to highlight that for a second because you could believe that we faced catastrophic climate change from CO2 emissions, and you could be open to all alternatives regardless of whether they were classified as green or not. For example, you'd be open to nuclear and hydro, which nuclear is almost never considered green, and hydro these days is rarely considered green. So I just want to point out should strike people as weird that we care so much about CO2 emissions, and yet we insist on just the sun and the wind.
Yeah.
Right? We're not willing to split the atom or dam a river. And what I just as a preview, like what I think is going on there is for them, green is a religious idea. It's the idea that our impact on the planet is immoral, and so we should eliminate all of our impact on the planet. That's really what green means at the core, like minimize or eliminate impact. And I think they think of the sun and the wind as natural. And so what it's really about is a more natural world. It's not specifically about eliminate the problems caused by fossil fuels, but still have really good energy. It's really about a more natural way of life. And I think that's the only thing that can explain why they're so hostile to nuclear and hydro, which don't emit CO2 and are much more practical and successful in practice than solar wind. But the basic sort of the core of it, so it's like you're eliminating the CO2 emissions and then you're replacing it with overwhelmingly solar and wind. And so when you saw the Green New Deal in the US, this was exactly what they did. It was all about we're going to eliminate our emissions, we're going to eliminate around the world, and we're going to build up this solar and wind economy. And they, particularly like AOC, specifically excluded nuclear in their original document. So there are different diluted versions of that. But the thing to highlight is this is the dominant energy agenda in the world right now. I mean, at least the kind of long-term energy agenda, if you look at everyone's plans at the moment, pursuing this agenda has led to a total disaster. So right now, everyone is scrambling for fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. Like Joe Biden ran on, I guarantee you, we will end fossil fuel. That was just a couple of years ago. Now he's begging every dictator in the world for fossil fuels, and he's pretending that he's done nothing against fossil fuels, because people are upset about gasoline prices. So there's this short-term change to focus on fossil fuels, but still every government says by 2050, which is just 28 years from now, we need to eliminate our emissions and mostly replace it with green energy. So it's important that this is the number one energy idea in the world. And just to take one step further, it's actually the number one moral idea in the world right now. So if you take, say, any big company, like I would challenge you to name a company that does not have a net zero by 2050 goal. Apple, Google, Facebook, car companies, oil companies have net. I mean, you could ask how that is possible, but a lot of them.
That's the one I do want to ask is how is this possible? How do they actually have a realistic plan on how this is going to happen?
No. So let me just say one thing about so it's universal. Everyone believes this, or not everyone believes this, but the leading institutions and many of the leading thinkers in the world say that our number one priority of any area in the world is to rapidly eliminate fossil fuel use and CO2 emissions and replace it with green energy.